Hello and welcome to the All About X-Men Comics podcast, where you'll find recaps and reviews of all the most recent X-Men comics, as well as previews for upcoming issues. Please keep in mind this will include spoilers and things you can't say on television. I'm host Scorpio Moon, and I once seriously considered legally changing my first name to Logan. Hosting with me is
Johnny Alpha, and I just want to remind the fans that the hardbound for Battle of the Atom just came out, man, and it is way worth it. I got my copy. It's oversized, so all the panels are just so much bigger, and it's so much fun to read a second time. So if you can, go get Battle of the Atom.
Hell yeah, man, and you have to love that Battle of the Atom is not over, because it's going to be revisited in the upcoming Dupe series, and also in that original graphic novel you were just telling me about the other day.
Right, No More Humans, written by Mike the King Carey himself. I cannot wait to read that, dude. Got my copy pre-ordered. I'm jazzed.
Yeah, man, so plenty of good shit. And we're going to start this week with my favorite comic, Cable and X-Force number 19. So let's just go ahead and take you right through the issue. Cable and X-Force number 19 starts off where we left off the previous issue of Vendetta, which was in Uncanny X-Force. And you've got the team of X-Forces surrounded by the big giant fucking mess they just made with their own little Battle of the Atom version. You've got some time for Forge and Storm to catch up. And of course, Forge goes through the whole, oh yeah, remember that time when I went crazy? Well, kind of blame the thing that was, inhabiting my mind, the trickster which we went through in the previous arc. Because if you're going to go crazy in X-Men comics, it's always good to have an alibi. We get Boomer and Puck, who are probably one of my favorite interactions in this book. You've got Puck kind of hitting on Boomer, who just calls him old and skeevy. And I thought that would be kind of like a throwaway thing, but they dragged that out through the rest of the issue.
And it was hilarious, man. I mean, Puck just did not learn his lesson, and it really made for one of my favorite things that I've read this week.
So the X-Forces have to get the fuck out of the way before the LAPD come and arrest them, because like I said, they just made a giant mess all over town. And they decide that what they need to do is enhance Psylocke's telepathic capabilities because Strife, Hope, and Cable in a really secure location, and there's probably some, mental shielding going on there. Psylocke can't quite pin them down, so they need to whip up kind of a, on-the-fly version of Cerebro for her. They do this by going to a Tony Stark-owned junkyard to look for spare parts, and of course one of my favorite lines comes from Dr. Nemesis, who, in his arrogance says, "Whip up? I never whip up anything."
Right, and you'd be surprised at how much of Forge's genius is actually made out of garbage.
Classic Dr. Nemesis. We jump back to the Strife situation, where he uses his telepathic powers to force Spiral to use her powers to teleport herself away, and she gets stuck in the middle of like a sword boat or some shit.
Yeah, she's like on Deadliest Catch. She's stuck with George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg in a perfect storm type of boat.
Throw off your bow line, throw off your stern. You head out the South Channel, past Rocky Neck, 10-Pound Island, past Niles Pond, where I skated as a kid. Steaming now. You're a goddamn swordboat captain. Is there anything better in the world?
Cable's in a pretty tough spot here, and he's almost willing to at least try and pretend to concede to Strife just to get things over with, but no. Not going to get away that easy. Strife is still going to draw this out. Another one of my favorite scenes in this always very enjoyable comic is Boom Boom and Puck having the arm wrestling match, and the little bet that they make based off of that. And of course, Domino and Colossus continuing their little behind-the-scenes fuckfest during the middle of every mission that they can.
Right. I mean, I was going to touch on that after you finished your rundown. I really love Hopeless's character interactions with these characters, man. It's really funny, and especially when they go and rescue Spiral from the sword boat, and she's talking about how they only have 5 CDs, and all of them are Neil Diamond, and Colossus is like, "I like Neil Diamond," and she's like, "Well, you're an idiot." It's stuff like that, man. It almost makes these characters I don't know if realistic's the term, but it makes them seem like normal people, you know what I mean? When a lot of X books you're reading, they try to make them, I don't know, talk too superior, or sometimes they're really written emotionless, but Hopeless kind of wipes that all away and makes them actually talk like maybe a little bit too TV style, but I mean still, it really kind of makes it familiar and makes it a lot of fun. I think that's what really drives this book home for me and you, you know, with our enjoyability of it, is the way that he makes these characters jump out of the page as real people.
Those are the exact words that I was going to use, like real people. And yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said sometimes he tries to make them talk a little too modern. But still, you read this book and you think to yourself, yeah, this is how real people talk and interact with each other, which makes these X-Force teams just, you know, stand out so much more from like the regular, sometimes stuffy X books, or, you know, more proper S books, or more superhero cliche conversation X books. You're never going to be able to replace the dynamic that he wrote with these particular team members.
Yes, and touching on my favorite subject to bring up when we're discussing these teams, is Bishop really have to be this stupid all the time? I mean, honestly, Hope is actually sitting there trying to figure out a way that she can, like, escape with both of them and not have to kill his stupid ass, and he's got to start, you know, me and your daddy, we're the same type of guy, you know, and, like, he is begging for her to start beating his ass, and she does, man. I mean, like, Hope's just knocking the shit out of him, and his dumb ass won't shut up. I guess maybe he feels entitled and he wants to be killed or something by Hope because he thinks that'll make it right or something, but I really don't get Bishop's stupidity. You know what I mean? It's like, God, can they ever throw this poor character a bone?
Yeah, man, that was our next scene up, and like you said, Hope offers a little bit of a temporary truce to get out of the situation, which is kind of one of those convenient storytelling things, because like I said, I'm just rooting for her to fucking kill this motherfucker.
Well, she made a great point. She's like, Strife wants me to kill you, so that's obviously something I shouldn't do, you know what I mean? Because, you know, he's out of his mind bad guy, and, like, Bishop's just like, no, man, I want you to kill me or something. I don't get the philosophy. Maybe Strife's making him do it. I don't think so, though. I think that Bishop's really just written that stupidly all the time. And, like, people just, like, expect it from him, you know? Like, well, with this stupid asshole, oh, yeah, he'd goad the little girl into killing him. Yeah, it's something Bishop would do. It's very Bishop-esque.
I mean, at least Bishop is remorseful about what he's done. But yeah, good point on Hope, man. She recognizes that if the villain wants you to do it, it's probably not a good thing. And that's the best case you can make for why Hope shouldn't kill Bishop, even though I'm totally still rooting for it.
This whole thing that Cable's like, don't do it, kid. You don't want it on your soul. I mean, like, it's very Wolverine of him. Only I get to kill the assholes around here. You're too good. Also kind of reminds me of Dean from Supernatural, which I never get, like, why do you get to be the tough guy and Sam, you know, always has to, like, sit backseat? I guess maybe Hope is his Sam.
I think part of it is just that stereotypical hero complex. In some ways, it's almost a little selfish. Where the hero, they want to be the one to do it. Like, you know, they want to put this on themselves. They'll carry the load. Like, that's just part of the mentality of heroes. The only other case I can kind of make against Hope killing Bishop is that, yeah, you mentioned in the last episode how Hope, for example, had, like, killed the shit out of all those cockroach creatures, which were technically alive. You know, isn't killing, you know, whether done for the hell of it or fun? But I guess technically what Cable might be trying to stop is revenge killing. It's a tricky thing, like you said, it's still killing, but maybe he doesn't want her to be consumed with that revenge mentality and what it can do to you. So to wrap up the recap, once we get towards the end of the issue, Hope is beating the living shit out of Bishop, and in some of the last panels, it looks like she finally puts that sitar right through his fucking chest. The team is going to be on their way, and that's basically our to be continued, with Vendetta wrapping up in the next, which will be the last issue of Uncanny X-Force.
Rest in peace, X-Force books. I mean, I know we're getting another one to replace you, and I'm excited to read it, but I don't know if it'll ever take the place that these two books had, you know? I mean, these were just really awesome, fun little reads.
My only nitpick about this issue whatsoever is that I wish for the last issue of Cable and X-Force, it would have gotten some kind of wrap-up in some way. Because, I mean, this is it. This is the end. There's no Cable and X-Force number 20. The last time we see these teams will be in the next and last issue of Uncanny X-Force, and then it launches into Cy Spurrier's new X-Force book, which, yes, I'm also looking forward to. The concept for it is really great, but I think it's kind of a shame that the book doesn't really get any kind of send-off. It's just, to be continued in another title, and then boom, the end. Bam, damn.
I think that that's all going to get wrapped up when all these other characters wash up to whatever books they're going to be showing up in, because I know that the team of Dom and Colossus have to be going someplace cool. I really hope that they do, at least, because I really like that pairing. I really like how they've brought Boom Boom back. I haven't seen her since Next Wave Agents of Hate, so I hope that she ends up going someplace, maybe with Dom and Colossus, because they seem to be like old school homies. And yeah, I mean, I feel what you're saying, but I also think that Spurrier might do something cool like what David did with All New X-Factor #1, and he might give us a bit of an explanation in this X-Force #1. And I also feel that, their little base from Cable and X-Force, since Cable's going to be leading the new X-Force book, I think they're just going to use those digs, you know what I mean? And he's just going to bring his new team there.
One of the other things that made Cable and X-Force my favorite comic was just the very clearly depicted dynamic action scenes. Some of the best comic book action just anywhere in the medium as far as I'm concerned. So, for this issue, do we go thumbs up or thumbs down and buy it or skip it?
Thumbs up. There's just too much going on. There's just too much good. Great character interactions. The little side story between Puck and Boom Boom, her cheating at arm wrestling. I mean, like, that makes the issue alone if you didn't have all the other awesomeness going on around it. And buy it. I get what we've been saying, dude. You do not want to be sitting on your thumbs while the two X-Force books are crossing over and merging to become another book in the future. So this is definitely something that you should be reading.
Thumbs up here, too. For the last time that we're going to get to talk about this title as it is, I just want to say to everyone on the creative teams that have worked on it over its course, thanks for my favorite comic of the past year. And I'll go with buy it, because books this good just downright deserve it. Okay, so next up is All New X-Men 22 Point Now, which has one of those big, obnoxious, and kind of fakish #1s in the top right corner of the cover. Yes, it is technically the first issue of the Trial of Jean Grey story arc, but I think we all know what they're kind of trying to do with that.
It's a bit silly, but I mean, I like that they're keeping the original numbering and the stupid all-new numbering, so at least it's not completely confusing. Like the legacy numbering that they did, like when X-Factor jumped from issue 50 to 200.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like the next issue is going to have a big #2 logo on it. What you just said was your positive is my nitpick on it. Like, do we really need both? Like, if point now is supposed to signify jumping on point, do we have to have the point now and the #1 on the cover? It just seems a little saturated is all I'm saying.
And I really don't see this issue as a jump on point. All they really do is go over stuff that happened in Battle of the Atom and what happened last issue, So, I mean, it's kind of like new readers that are like, oh, this is a #1 they're going to be reading. It's like, what the hell are they talking about? It's like, like beginning, it really is just like issue 22, it takes place right after 21. They're talking about Battle of the Atom. If you really were going like, oh, I was waiting to jump into All New X-Men, and you go get this issue, you're really going to be like, what the hell's going on? What the hell are these little kid X-Men talking about in this?
My last thing on that, just though, is isn't the beginning of any arc technically a jumping on point? Yeah, man, so that's enough of the marketing. Let's get into the issue. We start off with X-23 training, Beast doing some time travel math, and Iceman being too cool for school outside singing Run DMC in the snow.
Making snow angels, yes. Singing It's Tricky.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time is tricky. It's tricky.
And I mean, by a show of hands, has anybody else ever practiced the lyrics for that one moment when it comes up and you can be the cool one that knows, oh yeah, it's that song, and also knows the lyrics?
I sing it in the shower, dude, so yeah.
Right on. In the meantime, Angel is also trying to eat, but gets stuck in the middle of Jean Grey and Cyclops arguing. Jean Grey can't really turn off her telepathy at this point because she's just too young with too much power. But I think it's important to note that this Jean Grey doesn't want to anyway.
And she's arguing with shit that Scott Summers isn't even saying. He's just sitting there and she's like, oh yeah, and he's just like, get out of my head, crazy, and like, Angel's just sitting there, just like doing the Benji face when Benji had to watch her and Beast fight.
I love his line about how Iceman would have enjoyed that so much more, though.
And that was very awkward. Bobby was here, he'd have loved that.
I don't think we really got a lot of new information out of the conversation, though. Once again, it's one of those things where maybe some of it's new for the characters, but not you so much.
I really think that they're forming that this Scott and this Jean are not going to be lovers. They're going to be more allies and friends. Is really what I took away from it. You know what I mean? Because they're so weirded out that like they know that they're going to get married and stuff. I really think that's going to force them apart, which I think is going to be actually a really awesome thing about bringing these two back. We're not going to have to revisit the same stuff over again. Maybe I'm spitballing, but that's kind of what I saw them going with. I don't know how you feel about me or anything, but you're my best friend. You're a good friend of mine, so are you okay? And she still wouldn't talk to him, so I really like this Jean Grey. I like her batshit crazy and selfishness. It's really nice because I was really tired of like that Vestal virgin, angel with red hair, Jean Grey that people always shove in your face and remember so fondly. I like this. I only care about me, Jean, that we have now. It's a nice change of pace.
So that conversation dominates, I think, the majority of the book, at least as far as like what you feel is going on. And then the Shi'ar attack and abduct Jean Grey, intend on putting her on trial for anything and everything ever Jean Grey or Phoenix related. I think it's important to note here how previous versions of Jean Grey have died, and what the Shi'ar did to her family, which I believe she actually noted in that conversation, the whole war on the Greys.
Yeah, Rachel was there, yeah, they just showed up and just butchered the entire Grey family, basically. The issue was like 8 seconds it took them to completely murder the family in that issue, so I mean, yeah, it was a very brutal thing that Shi'ar did. Not too long ago, too. I mean, like, End of Grey's book was, it's a couple years ago.
Yeah, we're not talking about all that long ago chronologically for comic book fans. Well, I guess especially for the comics themselves. This, of course, on the very last page is where the also Bendis-written Guardians of the Galaxy show up. Too late to prevent it, but of course right on time for the crossover event between the two titles. Which is basically just going to go back and forth. It's going to be all new Guardians, all new Guardians, all new Guardians to make up the series.
It's a weird two to mix up. When I first heard that he was going to do it, I mean, I know he writes both books, but I'm actually kind of interested to see how this is going because I usually don't like Celestial Marvel comics unless it is the X-Men, like Ed Brubaker's Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, one of my favorite Celestial books ever. So, I mean, like, if Bendis can hit on that level of awesomeness with this, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, my favorite parts of this issue, I think, were mostly all Iceman. Whether it's, Run DMC in the snow, or his kind of, like, epic-ish scene at the end where he tries to take on the Shi'ar ship by himself.
Right, yeah, I mean, that was actually pretty tough. I thought, because they showed him and he was, like, kind of just, like, hiding in the snow. I thought they were going to make him kind of put out, but no, he goes up with this ice sled all pimp style, and they put him in a bubble, but, hey, man, it's the thought that counts, and Bobby went full balls out with that, dude, so he was pretty awesome.
And, of course, this is going to be someday great ammunition for the Wolverine-Cyclops debate when Wolverine can say, hey, you let young Jean Grey get abducted from your school on your watch. Way to go, Slim.
Yeah, he was going to let her get killed by fake X-Men from the future, so he really can't talk too much, that hypocrite with claws.
Well, no, now he can throw that back in Cyclops' face.
I guess.
But anyway, final thoughts, or should we do thumbs up and thumbs down?
I think I covered about everything that I wanted to say.
Alright then, so thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy or skip it.
I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I mean, I love all new. I don't think there's been an issue that I've wanted to pass on this. And buy it. I mean, this is going to be kind of an odd crossover. I don't think the X-Men and the Guardians have ever did a crossover. And this one's a bit of a convenient one because it's by the same author, so you don't have to have that conflicting of two different writers and two different styles from book to book. So this might actually be a very good crossover to get into.
I'm going to go thumbs up. It's a beautiful comic. I like all the colors and the big images with plenty of space between the lines. It looks like you'd expect out of a quality modern comic. I don't really have a bad word to say about it, but I'll go with skip it. I think this whole Trial of Jean Grey thing has collected edition written all over it. Next up is X-Men number 9. The issue begins with the X-Men trying to track down the evil sisterhood, which includes Rachel verbally interrogating John Sublime, who apparently is trying to be good now to impress her, is the implication. I don't think you just reform from the kind of shit that he's done, but there isn't too much time to dwell on it because the team of Lady Deathstrike, Enchantress, and Typhoid Mary have succeeded in bringing back Archaea, the alien technovirus from the arc that began this series. Archaea wakes up with a mad-on for the X-Men and knows that they're already on their way, with M being sent in to fly in and just chop off the whole top 7 floors of this building, which now makes up the body shop that the girls had put together to do their body mod upgrades with. Archaea wants to possess the Sisterhood and use them to fight the X-Men, and Deathstrike is just like, yeah, bring it on. Use us like your hand puppet whores. Just make sure you leave us with some powers at the end. Which is exactly the kind of deal that only a villain would make.
Right.
So they all get their enhancements, they don't even need the body shop, but aside from Enchantress getting Odin's curse lifted off of her, they don't really look any different. We don't really get to see what cool shit they have. At least not yet, anyway. So it's kind of like, yeah, we're upgraded, and then they kind of go with it into the action. So it ends with some fighting, some more possessions, and Archaea activating a bunch of Sentinels that had been left to rust at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, and M gets choked out.
Yeah, so that was kind of your, end of action cliffhanger ending.
All in all, yeah, this was a pretty action-packed issue, and I mean, like, John Sublime, I can't blame him, man. Rachel's hot, dude, especially in the little fucking red and yellow outfit. Yeah, it works for me. So, like, I'd be like, yeah, I don't need mutants anymore either, so. But, and then, yeah, M going on a Dubai building just by herself. She's a gangster, man. It's too bad that, like, she was way outmatched, but that's what good villains do. You know what I mean? They gotta win the first couple battles. So right on. I'm really liking the feel of this. It just kind of feels like these issues are getting shorter and shorter, though. Am I the only one that feels that way, or? Yeah,
I'm totally with you. At the end of this, I kind of had one of those. Wait, that was the whole thing? Like kind of reactions, like damn.
Right? I mean, like I'm hooked. I want it. Maybe I got to go back and read it again for a fifth time. But I mean, like, still, it's just. I think that's the mark of a good comic, though, personally, that you want more right away.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they also say that, time flies when you're having fun. So there's that, and it's kind of just a thing with comic books in general, especially when you read them issue to issue. It's just, you eat these things up so quickly.
Right. Especially, like, I read this, trying to get over a couple of the other books that we're covering this, and, like, yeah, it really was just, like, it seemed like those ones that took forever to get through, and then this one I was just so fun, and then it's like, oh, that's it, man. The Sentinels are getting up. I mean, like, that hardly makes up for the horribleness of having to read Origins, too.
Oh, yeah, don't worry, man. Don't worry. We'll get to that one later, but first things first, we've got to do thumbs up or thumbs down and buy it or skip it on this issue.
I'm going to give this a thumbs up, man. Wood is taking these X-Women to awesome heights. I really like this team. I really like how this team's functioning and how they're kind of, like, clicking together. I like that it's a new team, so they're not working together properly yet, which always makes for a fun read. But I'm going to have to say, get this in trade. Like I said, this issue, when you read it, you're just like, that's it! Wow! You kind of, it's almost a little frustrating that, like, it's so good and kind of feels short.
Thumbs up here. X-Men is on an upswing from last issue. It's got momentum again. I would say its stock is certainly rising. I'm not sure where that momentum is taking it, though. So far, we've defeated Archaea, had a battle of the Atom, and now we're already fighting Archaea again. They do add some nice touches, like bringing in Sabra and Gabriel Shepard to account for the diplomatic side of things in the plot, and hopefully to actually participate later. There are some really intriguing color combinations in the visual art, especially inside Cortez Tower in Dubai. The X-Books are among some of the best and boldest looking in comics right now, especially this amazing and all new, so I'd like to recommend it for just that. But getting back to that whole, was that it kind of feeling we got? Once again, maybe it's not a bad thing that it was so much fun and read so quickly, but I've also got to go with skip it because I don't think it will hurt you to skip this one and catch it later in the trade. Next up, we'll do Wolverine and the X-Men number 40. We've got two stories here that the book cuts back and forth between, but let's do them one at a time. First, we'll do the story of the two young S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who have been taking mutant growth hormone to infiltrate the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Quire and the gang do one of those we knew all along things when they confront them, and force the agents on one last, Banff-driven tour of the school. Here, they remind us for the 11th billionth time that yes, this school is a weird place. I get it, Jason Aaron.
Right. Just beat us over the head like a baby seal, why don't you?
So it saddens the one agent who had kind of come to identify with the kids. He actually knocks out his own sister, and then tells Quire that he should just mind wipe them and replace their memories with basically the mission was boring, we didn't find anything interesting, go ahead, just let us go, and they'll go back and tell S.H.I.E.L.D. nothing. It was pretty exciting to see these kids knuckle up, and Johnny, I'm really sorry that you didn't get the fight that you were looking for.
I knew it wasn't going to happen. This is Wolverine and X-Men. The kids never fight in this. They go on fun little rocket pack adventures. They don't ever actually do X-Men things. That would break Jason Aaron's stride if he actually had them do X-Men things. The X-Men actually did X-Men things in this book.
Well, I mean, Quire's mind wipe is X-Men-y, right?
After he's, like, begged to do it, yeah, Archie finally does a mind wipe, which, I mean, that's, like, base X-Men, you know? Like, it's not... It was very interesting when they started doing mind wipes, like, in the 90s and stuff, but now it's just kind of like, they do them all the time.
Still, personally, I've got to applaud it anytime the hero can save the day by doing something more creative than just punching the bad guy. One thing I liked about the panel afterwards is when they've got, you know, the girl who was the squid face girl and the kid, you know, they're getting in the cab and leaving. And she's kind of relaying to him, like, what the information is going to be that she gives the shield. She says, "No one takes anything seriously here. The teachers have no clue what they're doing. Most of the students I've never even heard of, let alone care about. No way is this place ever going to be a threat to the rest of us. There's no way it'd even last that long." Is it just me, or does that kind of sound like some of our opinions on this title?
Yeah, I think Jason Aaron wrote Squid Face Girl about us, man.
Like, you know, this shit's never serious. No one cares. No one's heard about half these kids. Like, Fucking, I mean, it's going to make it to 42 issues. That is pretty long as far as comic books go nowadays. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting little thing to point out. The other story, the Wolverine Cyclops thing, takes place in the aftermath of them smashing up the S.H.I.E.L.D. stockpile of mutant hunting sentinels. Remember, the idea here was that Mystique, posing as Agent Dazzler, leaked the information to them about the location, because I guess no matter how it went down, it was kind of a win for her. Like, they smash up sentinels. I mean, she's a mutant, she can't be mad about that. And maybe one of them kills the other. Once again, she can't really be mad about that either. During the scene, they do one of those tricks where Wolverine pops his claws, and you think like, oh, he's going to attack Cyclops, because he looks all tired and shit. But what he actually does is cuts his way through a secret passageway into a room filled with beer. I mean, I'm not sure why S.H.I.E.L.D. has like a stockpile room of beer. I think old school Nick Fury would have made like a really good excuse for it. But I mean, that doesn't really matter. The point is that Cyclops and Wolverine get drunk together. See how Wolverine and Cyclops have done the whole, you know, soldier on the battlefield thing together now, and now they're going to have a drink. I mean, it might have been a great way to end the issue, just to have them, like, share a beer in silence and show that they can still have some mutual respect for each other. But no, Cyclops has to get all emo and talky and make a big conversation out of it. Johnny, I don't know how you felt about the conversation between Wolverine and Cyclops. I mean, personally, I would have liked to have seen them, like, really get into it more. Maybe Jason Aaron is not the best guy to do the heavy dialogue-y stuff between them. But it felt to me like they basically just kind of ran down the bullet points of their relationship.
Yeah, we got some sentinels here that, like, nobody should know about, so yeah, let's have a beer room next to us. Jason Aaron, dude, like, honestly, like, what happened to you? You used to write Scalped, you know what I mean? I mean, you had talent. Where does that shit go when you decide to do stuff like this? But, yeah, the conversation was stupid. It was unneeded. It was just the same tired stuff between Cyclops and Wolverine we've had since the new schisms took hold.
Has it taken this long, you know, post-schism to have someone actually say in comic books, yes, Wolverine and Cyclops are the new Professor X Magneto. And yes, since AVX, you know, Scott did kill Professor Xavier while under the possession of the Phoenix, but previous people at Phoenix have done way more than kill one person and been forgiven for it later.
Wolverine drowns his own son in a mud puddle. I mean, everybody forgets about that. Sure, Dakin was evil, but he was his kid, and he drowned him in a fucking mud puddle. And Wolverine didn't have no Phoenix Force 5 power, man. He was just plain old dickweed Wolverine. So, I mean, like, that's the funniest thing that people go on and on about. He killed Professor X. Yeah, well, this asshole killed his own kid.
Well, he does have his future self warn him in the X-Force book that anything less than killing Dakin would result in Dakin being free to murder his entire school of kids. But anyway, the problem with Cyclops killing Xavier versus what everyone else has done, like Wolverine, the problem isn't what he's done, it's his reaction to it. Like, Cyclops has never really shown any remorse. If anything, he always acts like, you know, he's just like the victim in the situation, and he barely does address it, and he tries to just power through and keep going on doing the same things. I mean, look at like Cable and X-Force, which you talked about first. You've got Forge, who went fucking psycho and did a bunch of shit. He's like, yeah, I was possessed, but at least he tries to talk it out with Storm. Or look at Bishop himself. You know, Bishop, like, killed whole worlds and tried to murder a poor defenseless little girl. But it's also, you know, like, eaten him up to the point of being practically suicidal. So many X-Men have done so much horrible shit. You know, the Phoenix killing whole worlds, you know, everything else. Like, they've all, like, lost their minds at some point or another. But they feel badly about it.
Well, and another thing that you're missing, dude, is that Scott and Charlie were not on the best of terms when AVX happened. I mean, there'd been so many things. I know there's stuff that you didn't like, and it's retcon stuff about, like, how sparkly clean Professor X's past was. But, I mean, like, Professor X knew that Scott Summers had another older brother, and that he thought he killed him, and he completely made everybody forget about that. He was kind of persona non grata by everybody. Nobody liked Charlie Xavier anymore until Cyclops killed him, and now everybody was crying about, oh, what did you do to him? It's hypocrisy at the highest level, dude, honestly. Like, where was Wolverine's bleeding heart from? They barely let that asshole come and live in Utopia because they were so mad at him, mind-wiping everybody all the time for any excuse that he kind of wanted to be a little mind Nazi about. Professor X, like, I mean, I know you don't like these changes, but they are canon changes to the character. And honestly, I think that Cyclops, you know, he feels bad. He did it. But, you know, Cyclops has never been the kind of guy to sit around and cry about doing something. And, you know, maybe, and I think that it is for the best of the universe, that Professor X is gone for good. I think it's very ambitious to have, you know, the Soldier Boy, the Leonardo of the Ninja Turtles become the new Shredder. That's good writing, in my opinion.
So yeah, the idea of Saint Xavier is kind of over. And if anything, him being dead makes it easier to kind of remember just the good parts and put him up on this pedestal. I mean, even if it is retconning the retcon to say, yeah, he was Saint Xavier, it still gives you that kind of idol to look up to. It gives you something to aspire to. But another important thing is the perception. With Cyclops not even appearing to be remorseful, it gives him the perception around the world of being a villain. And you can't have a villain as the leader of your people. And don't get me wrong, if Cyclops was being all suicidal, like Lucas Bishop in the pages of Cable and X-Force, that would not do mutant kind any fucking good. Don't you kind of wish that we had some ideal, like some good character to look up to as the leader of the mutants?
We have Gambit in X Factor, man.
Aw, Gambit's got way too much of a dirty past. You can't have Gambit be the idol of mutant kind.
You know, like, the only person that was trying to help him out when Professor X needed help is Gambit, of all people. You know what I mean? In the pages of X-Men Legacy. Before Gambit, I had Jamie Madrox at X Factor, man. He was the only true believer in Charlie's dream. He never went to Utopia. He never gave up, man. He stayed the course. He stayed living amongst the people, helping the people, and helping mutants when he could. I think that maybe Peter David's going to do the same kind of aesthetic character changes to Gambit to make him the new Madrox. And if he does, then yeah, that's who I'm going to be looking to as, like, yeah, the guy that probably should actually be leading the mutants.
Well, I hope we get somebody. Okay, so thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
Thumbs down. Wolverine and Archie's just, you know, like, they almost got me, like you were talking about Ultimate X-Men last time. They almost got me with the last two issues of, like, making it kind of cool, the interaction between Cyclops and Wolverine. But all the stuff with the Archies, man, and, like, them not fighting and them just completely being lame and Archie-ish again, just completely turned my stomach and skip this, man. This title cannot end soon enough, in my opinion.
I've got to go thumbs up. I thought the ending for the Archie's tale was creative. I'm going to go with buy it, because personally I just can't get enough of Wolverine vs. Cyclops than anything Schismish related. Speaking of All New X Factor, All New X Factor number 2 is our next book up. One of the things that Marvel has been doing best this year is spreading the AIM organization around the various books. And I guess that's who's in charge of this mutant experimentation facility that X Factor is attacking.
You gotta love that doctor that's in charge, man. I mean, they're attacking it. He doesn't even get scared. He's just like, bring them on. Yes, we can test our stuff out. You know, I really like when villains do stuff like that, dude. That was very awesome way to start this issue, in my opinion.
Definitely. That dude was a great comic book villain. And it makes Serval Industries look all the better for wanting to attack him. The facility's defenses do all right against the team at first, until Polaris just starts tearing shit down in frustration, and Gambit and Quicksilver, of course, escape their death traps in time to fight the scientist. I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad, but I mean, like, trapdoors and, like, the kind of shit that they had to fight, I mean, that's, like, basic Danger Room shit, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing that Quicksilver had to go through, definitely, but Gambit's thing, he kind of actually had to show that he had skill. He had to throw his card at the right time to make that thing a pop. He almost actually got himself cooked. So, I mean, like, Gambit's was a little bit more difficult, but yeah, when they did the little quick one-panel flashback of what Quicksilver did, yeah, spiked walls and, yeah, dude, this guy can run and do all kinds of crazy shit. That was nothing for him, you know what I mean? He could stop, scratch his nose, and, like, you know, read a Playboy in the middle of doing all that crap.
Okay, man, so yeah, the scientist has tested his own work on himself now, and turned himself into a giant glowing monster. He even brags about being better at being a mutant than mutants, basically. As they defeat this thing, Gambit quotes Star Wars, thinks specifically about what Luke might have done in a T-16 back home. With Disney's acquisition of Marvel, get used to that. So Fatale, Abyss, and Reaper are saved, but not entirely grateful because of their unpleasant history with Quicksilver. How much of this do we remember? How they blame him for his role in M-Day, and for giving them back fucked up powers that forced them to have to live in this, like, shitty pocket dimension just to not blow themselves up? I think it's kind of funny to imagine that Quicksilver, of all people, is the asshole out of this group, but this is all basically a callback to the previous volume of X-Factor, right?
Exactly. But yeah, dude, it was pretty cool that at least he's leaning on something from back in the day. And I really like seeing old mutants from the past brought back instead of just, like, showing us all these new kids popping up. That he actually brought Abyss and Reaper and stuff, like, to kind of, like, I don't know, show that this all-new X-Factor isn't going to completely be all new. There's actually going to be some kind of nostalgia to it, too. That's
actually almost a bit of a point of contention for me. I mean, I don't want to argue against it, especially because I think of a lot of the all-news they've done lately, I think all-new X-Factor was kind of one of the ones that was more deserving of a relaunch, I guess. But we've already seen in both issues of this comic so far, him relying heavily upon previous X-Factor stuff.
They're working for a shady organization that we don't know what they're up to, you know. They got different characters, so in a way it's going to be all new X-Factor, but in a way it's still X-Factor. So there's still going to be, you know, X-Factor things going on with it, as well as other X stuff, but I think that, like, he really wants to lay in the groundwork that above everything else, it's X-Factor. You know, and it's not going to be like X-Force or any of the other X books. So expect X-Factor things to maybe pop up from time to time, even though this is all new. The other X-Factor stuff still happened.
Fair enough. So thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
Thumbs up. Just the relationship between Quicksilver and Gambit that's coming up, and I really like this kind of bitchy, cocky Polaris. It's really just making this title more than I was expecting, and buy it. This is a great second issue, and I think these two issues so far have been a great introduction to this new version, this new X-Force title.
Thumbs up here, too. I can't believe they basically wrapped up an arc in only 2 issues, and the first 2 issues of a series. Fucking congrats, guys. They've dealt with Danger Room exercises even more difficult than what they were presented with in this issue, but there's still a real charm and simplicity to it, too. I'll also go with buy it. Everyone gets to use their powers in very clearly depicted ways, and even though I gave this title some crap for seeming more familiar than truly all new, everything is being mixed around in a way that makes it feel fresh and exciting. Our next book for discussion is Cataclysm Ultimate X-Men number 3. So even though fighting Galactus drones was presented as, like, impossible before, now they're all individually fighting off Galactus drones. Rogue freaks out, but she's comforted by Rick Jones, and somehow that immediately turns into a romance thing and they kiss. Pixie is still dying from last issue, but has the strength to reach out to Rogue and touch her to force her to take the last of her power, and presumably her life. Now, despite not knowing how they got there in the first place, so, you know, I don't see how Rogue can really direct it right, that's still enough to magically zap them back to their Earth, which is still facing the threat of Galactus. Rogue resolves that they're going to go be superheroes and fight Galactus, and the last panel directs you to go see these X-Men get involved, supposedly, in Cataclysm number 4, the next upcoming book in the main Cataclysm event. I assume by Cataclysm they mean Cataclysm The Last Stand. That's the book, right? That's the series?
Yeah. And, like, you're right, man. When we were first talking about the first issue, and you were like, it would have been so much better if they'd have just, like, put it in a normal Ultimates book, just, like, one flash of, like, you know, they're in Utopia, and, like, Kitty Pryde and Jimmy look up and see Galactus, and they're just like, huh, well, it's their problem. We gotta fix Utopia. That would have been so much better than this crappy 3-shot that was just rushed, forced, made no sense. The 3 issues of them being out of their element, fighting flying ashtrays. This is an embarrassment to anybody that liked Ultimate X-Men in the story. This is just pathetic.
I think Rogue being powered up looks pretty cool. Whether it's like she's glowing with claws or like with Pixie's powers. I thought those scenes were artistically kind of well depicted, but those are basically my only positives whatsoever.
Oh yeah, well the art in this 3-shot's been pretty good all the way through, and Rogue looks really hot on the cover of this issue as well, so I mean, there's that, but I mean, I don't think that that's going to get this thing a good verdict for me.
So we know now that the whole Ultimate Universe isn't going to end, especially because there's all new Ultimates or whatever else it is coming up. So they pretty much already spoiled that. I'm not sure how many Ultimate titles there are going to be going forward, but I mean, at least we'll have that new team book that does include Kitty, so that might be worth looking at later. But as far as I'm concerned, this little side trip miniseries, this Cataclysm Ultimate X-Men, never happened.
Right.
So thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
Thumbs down. Don't even look at this and skip it. And honestly, like, if you want to read Ultimate X-Men, wait for the World War X trade to come out. I mean, that should be out soon, so this is not even worth checking out. This is worth boycotting, actually. It's so awful.
I agree, which is why I'm just going to go with a straight thumbs down. And also say skip it. Wait, skip what? Ah, shit, I totally forgot what we were just talking about. Fuck it. Let's talk about some X-Men comics, man. Let's do Marvel Knights X-Men number 3. So when we last left, the girl who makes memories come to life had just taken mutant acid, sending her power out of control and into overdrive, bringing manifestations to life everywhere, especially of ex-villains. This whole tiny town is thrown into chaos, and Wolverine has been put under a hypnotic suggestion to try and kill this girl. Elsewhere in the book, Kitty is trying to protect the other young mutant, and the crazy commune guys that make the mutant drug kill the sheriff, who was their intermediary, and ride into town on their own.
Yeah, them damn Duck Dynasty looking motherfuckers.
That's totally what I was thinking too.
When you were reading that, you're like, oh man, dude, like Duck Dynasty's up for this comic.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And then as the issue ends, Rogue is fighting Wolverine. The sheriff is still around as a ghost, and everything is still in complete and utter chaos. Johnny Alpha, you go first. What were your impressions of Marvel Knights X-Men number 3?
Well, the ghost sheriff, he's always kind of appeared to the girl, which we end up finding out is he's her uncle. I think that may be his power or part of her power because, you know, he's kind of hesitant to take the drug, and he is weirded out when he finds out that it's made of mutants. So I think he might have actually been a closet mutant because, you know, that shit runs in the family. It could have came about better the way they kind of had Wolverine being a dick. But I really liked Rogue knuckling up, man. She was badass. She's just like, you know what, dude? I had a troubled past. You assholes always throw that in my face. You know what? Dude, we're going to duke it out this time, and I'll show you like what my villain years did for me, you know?
They're losing me, man. Honestly, they're losing me. It feels like they're going down the Phantom X Max road a bit with the visual art, too. Where what starts out as a cool little, like, uniqueness or kind of twist to it just gets progressively crazier and warped. Too much of this book seems as vague as possible. Like, who needs to bother drawing in the rest of the faces? Like, the first half especially, it just looks really, really incomplete.
I got you there. Yeah, the art is getting a bit more disappointing, but I don't know, I think the story's going somewhere fun, you know what I mean? I think they're trying to do a different style of X book with this, and I don't know, I think it's working better than the Max books have lately, so.
Do you got any more, or should we do the end?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and verdict it, man.
Alright, man, so thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
I'm gonna still give this a thumbs up. I really like how it's going, kind of. Yeah, it is going with that writing trope that you and me kind of grunt at, where everything's gonna be told in the end of it. A lot of X books are doing a lot better, but, you know, this is Marvel Knight, and they're really trying to relaunch that, so I can't expect perfection, but like I said, it is going better than the Max books, but get this in the trade. You know, I really don't think that this issue is going to blow any socks off.
I've got a thumbs down here. To me, this book is starting to feel like just an excuse to draw psychedelics, which are admittedly pretty cool looking. And I'll go with skip it. I think I actually recommended getting the first issue because it was a decent book during a shitty week, but afterwards I kind of started leaning towards this being a get the trade maybe at best, and this issue didn't do anything to sway me back in the other direction. Okay, next we're going to do Origin 2, number 2. At this point in the story, like I promised, Wolverine is Bigfoot. And no, I'm not even kidding, that's pretty much the metaphor here. After the events of last issue, the Wolfish Man is an urban legend, a clawed beast said to roam the nearby wilderness. Tales are told and sold about the remains of a strangely mutilated polar bear with wounds unlike those made by any known creature. This is where the stories of two future X-Men villains cross over into Wolverines. The bear, of course, belonged to one Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister. He wants to get his bear back because it was full of genetic secrets because it's his science experiment. Mr. Creed, aka Sabretooth, at this point is basically just a very accomplished tracker who also has some very pointy teeth and very pointy nails, but he's working for someone who also wants to hunt down this urban legend. I'm pretty sure that these are both actually Sinister and Sabretooth. I mean, I think they've basically spoiled that in solicits and in interviews, but you gotta remember the bullshit that they tried to pull back in the first Origin book with Dog Logan or whatever. But still, I think you can take this mostly at face value. They also introduce a new character named Clara, who's Sabretooth's accomplice, and she's a little bit of an interesting mix here. Like, she's got the sharp teeth, she's got like a weird looking eye thing, she also has a clawed to shit looking one side of her face, and she seems to be some kind of a mutant perhaps, because she has the ability to calm and soothe a raging beast. One of the characters jokingly calls her Sabretooth's beau, but I'm not sure how much of a joke that was. Like, I'm not completely sure if Clara is meant to be Sabretooth's, like, fuck interest, or if it's like his sister, maybe. They kind of play coy with exactly what the relationship is.
Well, he was very jealous, and he did, like, throw an extra, like, kick into Wolverine for making eyes at her. So there is either, like, there's either a family bond, or, he wants to give it a wicked dickin'.
Yeah, man. Fuck it, Sabretooth. Maybe it's both. But, I think Clara's gonna be kind of a sympathetic character here. I mean,
she's the new Rose. She's the new Rose. From this on, this title is no longer Origins 2. It is called Shit for Brains Begins. And because this Wolverine is written... I mean, he almost makes Wolverine Max look smart. I mean, like, the lack of actual Wolverine that we get to see in this issue, when he does show up, he just, like, flails, kind of like in that goofy comedy thing that is on YouTube where the guy's firing Wolverine. I mean, like, he was pointless. And yeah, we get to see somebody that might be Sinister show up looking very androgynous in like a red robe in like some cowboy town, and like, which makes me think that why the hell did they stick Mr. Sinister in this issue? It was kind of just pointless to be like, haha. I really do not get what this book is trying to do. I mean, it is trying too hard to like be something important, and that's all it's doing is just trying hard to be important. It's not actually accomplishing anything, in my opinion.
Especially as far as Wolverine is concerned. Because, I mean, this was supposed to be a Wolverine, right? But for a book that's about the origin of Wolverine, this issue is completely about the villains, and also, once again, Wolverine has no speaking lines in his own comic. In fact, Wolverine hasn't spoken a single line in Origins so far. And to get to the end of the issue, this is the part of the podcast where I tell you, if you haven't read it, and if you haven't read it, brace yourself, because you can only hear this for the first time once. We learn from Origin 2, where they've decided to set in stone the fact that the first encounter between Wolverine and his arch-nemesis Sabretooth was when Sabretooth captured Wolverine to put him in the circus.
Yes. Very, very amazing stuff. I mean, like, honestly, like, I bet you never saw that one coming. The circus! Bah, 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 you know, I mean, Jesus. I mean, honestly, I feel so bad for you Wolverine fans right now. Like, you guys have to go with Cornell and his horrible Passions of the Wolverine. You had to sit through Jason Starr and Shit for Brains Max, and now you guys got this. Shit for Brains Begins.
Wait, I mean, I'm not even kidding. Fucking, this is their comic. Sabretooth wants to put Wolverine in the circus. Like they're doing like a King Kong thing with Wolverine. Like, that's what they decided it should be.
You know, you got the whole crazy scene where Sinister standing there, he's got his marauders, and put your masks on, lad, you know, you don't want to breathe in this horrible smoke. And they smoke Wolverine out of one side, and then, like, they're not able to catch up to the circus guy and Sabretooth and, like, take Wolverine back. Sinister had a shitload of dudes, you know what I mean? Like, it was just pointless to, like, have him show up like that, and then, like, you know, yeah, Wolverine just gets taken to the circus. Wow.
I don't know if it's technically the circus. I mean, the circus is kind of the joke I make. Because I don't think it's actually the circus. There isn't a circus in town. It's just like a sideshow attraction. Like, it's like a single thing. They don't have, like, the elephants eating peanuts or, like, whatever else going on. This is the whole show. Like, that's the whole thing. I mean, just for the sake of, you know, being honest about the comic.
Well, you get that impression. The dude's in the red coat, like, of Carnival Barker. He's doing the, step right up, and see the wild claw man of the woods. You know, that's a very clever title, too, by the way, that guy came up with. Yeah, I mean, like, it really left you with, like, yeah, either Carnival or a circus is where he's at, you know, type of thing. Like, I mean, I guess we could get in a semantic argument of, like, there's clowns and elephants, but, I mean, basically, for all intents and purposes, he was put in, like, a circus-like show.
Maybe they'll build some attractions around Wolverine. I mean, if you're gonna go see Wolverine in a cage, you at least deserve some fucking popcorn.
Yeah, the Clawman log ride. I'm all for that.
And I saw someone put forth the possibility that maybe Sabretooth isn't, like, put together yet. Maybe he, maybe he's part me, but maybe he's just a guy. Like, maybe later on in this series you're gonna see Mr. Sinister take some genetics from Wolverine and do experiments on Creed. Like, maybe Creed doesn't have his healing factor yet. And maybe he gets it from Wolverine.
So you think Sabretooth is a mutate like Deadpool? Is basically what they're trying to say now.
I think it's a possibility. Or maybe, like, he's got his mutation being, because they kind of hint that, like, Sabretooth is being treated well despite something. So, like, maybe this guy knows that Sabretooth is kind of a mutant. And, like, maybe Sabretooth's mutant power is just being feral. Like, kind of like Clara. Like, they've got, like, pointy nails and pointy teeth, and they can track and smell and hear well and all that shit. But maybe Sabretooth just doesn't have his healing factor yet, and maybe he gets it from Wolverine via Mr. Sinister doing experiments.
Interesting, I guess. I mean,
I also bring that up because one of the things they do in this comic is they have Clara accuse Creed of being even worse than Wolverine, like animal-like or whatever. You know, Creed kind of snorts towards, like, I'm nothing like him. And that was kind of what they always do with Wolverine. Like, there's always that time in the comics where someone says, you know, Wolverine, you're just an animal. And, like, Wolverine has to defend, like, no, I'm nowhere near as bad as Creed. I'm not an animal. I don't, you know, give into it. I'm, you know, trying to still be a man. So what they do here is kind of like an early role reversal between the two. And I'm trying to decide if it's clever or just terribly cliched.
I'm going to go with the second one. If there's something clever in this book, it's going to be the first thing. You know what I mean? I mean, like, this thing is just full of horrible cliches. I mean, like, that's all we've talked about since we started going on with issue 1. The wolfish man and narration, and now with them trying to be poignant with... It's like in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, where Mark Wahlberg touches the gorilla and he goes, take your damn hands off me, you damn dirty man. You know, that's basically what this is, but the Wolverine version of it.
Maybe there's going to be more than one thing of that. Like, maybe you'll see that Sabretooth is kind of just a crappy imitation of Wolverine because he gets, like, his powers based off of Mr. Sinister, who, like, always does genetic experiments anyway. And also remember that Sabretooth was a marauder, too, and he was kind of one of Sinister's lackeys.
Right.
But yeah, thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
Thumbs down. The art is nice in this, but it's not as nice as what's going on in Savage Wolverine right now. And the story is horrible. It's nothing near as good as what's going on in Savage Wolverine right now. So just skip this. It's awful. And I mean, honestly, like, who cares? Everybody knows that this is going to have, like, some big, overpriced hardbound when it comes out. But that doesn't mean that this is actually worth reading.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious where they were going to go with some of these ideas. Especially in regards to Clara, because I almost kind of like her. Wolverine is my favorite character. But honestly, I'm bored. Skip it. It wasn't even about Wolverine. It was about the villains. I mean, I like Sinister and Sabretooth, don't get me wrong. But I kind of envy anyone who has the patience to wait for the trade. Or even better yet, the willpower to skip this series altogether. So anyway, let's look forward to something else in our previews. Now, next week would technically be a pretty light week, mainstream X-Men wise, but no fucking way are we going to let that happen. I think one of the first things we might actually talk about next week might be Avengers Assemble number 23, the Inhumanity tie-in. Because Kelly Sue DeConnick is doing a Spider-Girl and Wolverine tale, which I think might be worth a look.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I love Spider-Woman, and the interaction between the two of them is always really cool, especially in the, I don't know if you read the graphic novel that Bendis did, Spider-Woman Agent of S.W.O.R.D., where there's really kind of funny chemistry between the two of them. So, yeah, I'm all for that.
Cataclysm The Ultimate's Last Stand number 4 might also be worth a look, just to check in on some of the Ultimate versions of mutants who might be in it. But we'll let you know. Right, Johnny?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love the Ultimates Kitty, so she's going to be in it in her little white outfit. I'm reading it. I'll check it out.
Also, not technically an X-Men book, but Guardians of the Galaxy 11 Point Now is the next stop on the Trial of Jean Grey story.
Yeah, buckle in. We're going to be covering some Guardians because they're definitely going to be teaming up. I mean, of course, you got the fashionably late, like, oh man, are we late? The line from Star-Lord at the end of this issue of All New. And, you know, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some really funny stuff between Rocket Raccoon and Iceman. So, yeah, it's going to be a good little read.
We're also going to do None of the Living Deadpool number 2 because Deadpool.
Mm-hmm. Wade, and like this is fun. It's good with the George A. Romero Walking Dead jokes in it, you know what I mean? And it's also, like we said, some of the tropes that they play with are fun. The talking zombies is a little different, and especially since they established that like basically all the heroes died, Deadpool's basically the only thing that even passes for a hero that's still alive, which might actually make this kind of a fun little mini, you know what I mean? And Colin Bunn's a genius, so whatever. I'll read it.
Yeah, man. Getting into actual X books, we're going to get Uncanny Avengers number 16. So we're only going into the 5th issue of this arc that's planned for 6. I mean, it's longer, or I mean, it's on the higher end of the longer typical lengths, but it's not that bad, really. I mean, it feels like a lot, especially when your book only comes out monthly, and the volumes also bleed right into each other, because the Apocalypse Twins started at what, like issue 6?
Yeah, I mean, like, right at the second story arc, they finish off with the Red Skull with Xavier's brain, and then, yeah, they just go right into the Apocalypse Twin with Thor and his axe and trying to kill Apocalypse. Yeah, so it's been going for, I don't know, like, longer, about as long as the books ran, except for maybe the first 5 issues.
Basically, man, the only reason I bring that up is because we've bitched about this a lot, but, I mean, technically, I mean, a 6-issue arc in a book that comes out once a month, I mean, that's just old school comic book reading, right?
Yeah, I mean, it harkens back to the, a couple of years ago when basically, because graphic novels, like, rule everything, so the graphic novel format kind of took over regular comic books as well, and everything became these long story arcs that, like, basically wrapped up, like, graphic novels, and, like, I guess Remender, because he kind of really is, if you read like all of his Image stuff, is a graphic novelist. He does minis and graphic novels, so I think that maybe that's his milieu, that's his format that he's comfortable with. So if you read his runs on Uncanny X-Force and his mediocre run on Captain America he's doing right now, that's like how he writes all of his books. So I think he's still stuck in that mode where like, I gotta tell this big story.
And also with all the mutant characters being kind of knocked out right now, expect a very Avengers-heavy issue of this book. So we've got Uncanny X-Force number 17, Part 4, Vendetta. And I've got to say, man, Jesus Christ, that went fast.
Yeah, it really is. They're just trying to, like, run to the finish line with these books. And it's a little sad because they're so good. I mean, I really hate that both these titles are ending, but whatevs.
And this is going to sound ironic as shit, but the most mainstream, like, mutant-filled X-Men book for next week is going to be X-Men Legacy number 23. Moving into the end of the show, the first thing we're doing to wrap things up is going to be Spiking the Punch.
Oh yeah!
Spiking the Punch is a segment where Johnny and I each recommend one non-X-Men related comic. Spike the Punch this week is sponsored by PSN-radio.com.
PSN Radio, the best in talk radio anywhere.
Johnny Alpha, would you like to lead us off?
Yeah, my Spiking the Punch, I'm going to keep it kind of close to home. This is going to be another Marvel book, and I'm going to go with the All New Invaders #1. This was kind of an interesting, kind of cool little book that I've been looking forward to. I kind of wish this issue did a bit more, but I got high hopes for it. And this is, if you know your Marvel lore, this harkens back to the very, very beginnings, back when it was the original Human Torch, Namor, Captain America, and Bucky, and the original Human Torch had a sidekick too named Toro, but I don't think he's showing up in this book. We kind of joined the original Human Torch, and he's like living in this small Midwest town as a mechanic, and he's trying to forget his days of heroes, and he kind of went crazy for a while, so he was kind of bad. He's chilling, he's doing his thing, working on cars, and this crazy Kree chick shows up, and she's asking him about stuff that never happened, and shows him this weird memory from an alternate universe where Captain America's Major Liberty, and it's like this really weird kind of take. I really think that Jamie Robinson, the amazing author of Starman, he really liked Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America, and if you remember that, they kind of really played with messing with Cap's memories of the early days of World War II, and I think he's taken a cue from that and trying to play with that a little bit, with a little bit more of an alien feel. But basically, yeah, Human Torch is trying to fight this chick off, and, it's not working. She's beating his ass, and at the end of the issue, you see the red, white, and blue shield fly out and knock her down, and then you get this amazing splash page of Cap and the Winter Soldier just standing there ready to do some damage. And then you find out that Namor has been taken by these Kree, and they've been torturing him to find out where his piece of this is. I think that they've got the wrong reality, because the memories that they're looking for and the things that they're about didn't happen in this 616 universe. So it's very vague, it's kind of elusive, it's a little confusing, but I'm excited for it anyways. I mean, it was a cool #1 issue. Probably not the best thing I've ever spiked with, but what the hell, man. Steve Pugh's art is gorgeous.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry that my first point on this is a negative, but I open up this issue, and the first thing that I see is, this crunched together text on the intros for each character. There's no spaces between the letters, all the words just blend into each other. It was just irritating to my eyes to read. I mean, it's not like I don't know who they are, so it doesn't really matter. What I love about this comic is what you pointed out, this nostalgia for World War II era superhero stuff. I always have loved it. Whether it's characters that date that far back, like the android Human Torch, or Namor. I think it was Marvel Comics #1 before it was technically Marvel, where they had, that Human Torch, Namor, and Captain America in it. Or even just comics that, have their adventures take place in that era. I've always had, a bit of a sentimentality for. And they've tried to bring back the Invaders a couple of times. I mean, this isn't the first, but it's never really stuck. They did, a 12-issue series a while back, and then, maybe 2-3 years ago, there was, a little thing they tried to do. But yeah, it never really stuck, and I don't think it will this time either. But the missing pieces of this God-controlling artifact that they're looking for, I think is a good enough setup as any to involve all these characters, and to bring in Kree and stuff like that. It's certainly better than just making them fight Hydra again, or conveniently resurrecting some Nazi threat.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I kind of found troubling about the other Invaders takes that they try to do is they try to use Johnny Storm Human Torch in it, and Bucky was never back. See, the thing that's kind of cool about this one is, they really got all of the original Invaders back for this. So, I mean, that's why I was totally stoked for this, because even Bucky's alive again.
More power to that. But honestly, I wasn't really feeling it all that hard. I don't think the action was really too clear. The scenes of the dialogue were pretty hammy, or at best kind of superhero cliche. But a big positive that I will throw at this, and the reason that I think it makes a pretty fine addition to the Spike the Punch segment, is that not a lot of people are really all too familiar with this android Human Torch version. And I think actually reading a comic book involving him is a lot better than just going and looking him up on Wikipedia.
Right. That was another thing that I really liked about this is it's from his point of view. Usually, when he shows up in comics and other Invader stuff, it's always either told by Cap or Namor. This one, it's actually about him, and the other characters show up, which I found very interesting because I know kind of very little about him too. Every time he shows up, it's for weird plot conveniences, and you never really actually get to know the guy. You actually got to go back and read the Golden Age Marvel stuff to know about him properly. So I'm really hoping that this book maybe relaunches this awesome old original Marvel character.
Yeah, man, he's a hell of an interesting idea, and I would like to see more of him. So even though this issue didn't really do it for me, even involving him, I'm totally willing to read another one. This week I went to your old wheelhouse. I went to Image Comics to one of my favorite books, The Walking Dead. So I'm spiking the punch this week with The Walking Dead number 120. Right now we're in the middle of an arc called All Out War. It's a 12-issue arc, but they've decided to speed up the installments of the comic to make it go by a little quicker. And I think this was a pretty good installment in that series. It starts right where they left off with the last issue, with a new character called Negan, who is a steroid version of the governor. He's right at the gates of the new stronghold with a zombie Trojan horse. He tries to make a peace offering, and they stupidly accept it and get a zombie into their camp that bites one of their members, who then puts Rick into an important decision. Because this member that got bitten is one of his main doctors. So does he cut off this doctor's arm and hopefully save her life and preserve having his doctor? Or does he let her save someone who got his leg blown off by a hand grenade, but then sacrifice herself? It's almost kind of like the Telltale version of the game, where you've got to make one of these like really quick but really like weird, crazy like moral decisions. And being a total Walking Dead junkie, I read the comics, I play the game, and I watch the TV show.
We've talked about this before. I was never able to get into All My Zombies, even back when it first launched. It was so huge, and like I tried to read it. I just got this feeling that like they were just going to drag it on as long as possible. And I had no idea how right I was going to be. 120 issues. God damn, that's a long time to take telling a zombie tale. See, I'm more for like the quick survival horror stuff. I'm a big Cross fan. But this issue, it was kind of cool. And like reading like how the characters are in the book, it kind of makes me wish that we had more of that in the show, because the Rick in the comic book would kick the shit out of that crybaby Andrew Lincoln any day. I like these characters better on this than I did, and Terry Moore's art is awesome. You know, I'm never going to tear that down. The visual look of the book and his line work, it's just amazing. It's just, I don't know, like The Walking Dead, it's too cool for me, you know what I mean? That's the best way I can put it. You know, it's just, you know, it's before my time. I can't get into it. Like I said, I like a little bit more faster-paced zombies where, you know, everybody dies, you know.
Hasn't Cross gone on for like forever, though?
Yeah, but they switched between characters. It's like Crossed 1 was about the weird Garth Ennis survivors, and then David Lapham started with Family Values. Now it's with the weird Mormon family where the dad molested his daughters and all that messed up stuff, and the mama wore like a... It's really disgusting, but it's awesome. And then Psychopath is about this guy who stumbles upon these survivors, and he's a serial killer, and he's worse than the damn fucking Cross Star. And then they started Badlands, which kind of juggles back and forth, and like the guy from Psychopath and the people from Family Values, they've shown back up from here and there, but it's not like ongoing with just this one cast and the one guy and his kid trying to make it down the lonesome road of zombies alone, you know?
Well, I think it's also one of those things where you and I kind of have like a genre battle. You're like, I like The Walking Dead, you like Crossed. You're really into like fables and shit like that, I think, but I'm more into like Zenoscope when it comes to my twisted fairy tale versions. But it's just kind of one of those things, like we each have like our preferences with that. But I totally feel you on your comments for the art in The Walking Dead number 120. I mean, you've got blown off limbs, half bodies, bites, bullet holes, all told in full black and white glory. And one of the things that I loved about this issue is I think this is one of those issues of The Walking Dead that Walking Dead fans have been looking forward to for a long time, because this is one of the most war-torn, just straight-up action-oriented issues of this whole, you know, full-on war event that they're talking about. Like, this was just action, 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 shit blown up, people blown up. Like, this is the Walking Dead comic that Walking Dead fans have been looking forward to for a long, long time.
I can attest to that from what I read. You know, like I told you, I only read like maybe the first couple arcs of it, and like, yeah, nothing ever happened. This definitely was antithesis of that. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, this really, like, there was shit going on. This actually kind of stepped back from the soap opera that is All My Zombies, aka Walking Dead, usually is. You know, this was actually a pretty gangster issue.
But one of the real highlights for me in this issue, and I hate to say it because I really don't like how popular this Negan guy has become, because it kind of feels like one of those deals where the villain becomes so popular that people want to turn them into the protagonist. But the dude really just fucking cracks me up, man. Like, he's going on and on about how much he's enjoying all the violence he's doing, like fucking these people up. It's just some really crazy fucking dialogue, man. Like, talks about how his dick is so hard it could crack steel, and he should wrap his dick in barbed wire and make that into his new weapon. Going on and on about all this shit. His little lackey shows up, And he's just like trying to play along. He's just like, yeah, my dick is a full-on boner for sure. And then Negan gives him this look like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's only funny when I do it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know, like I said, I'm completely out of my element. I have no idea what's going on in this. I haven't read. This is my first introduction to Negan. Yeah, I mean, like, it was totally grotesque. Robert Kirkman was definitely cracking his old oysters. That's why I thought it was weird that he came up with, like, this weird zombie soap opera, because I was used to, like, Super Patriot and, like, all these kind of weird, offensive comic books that he was famous for.
Well, Negan is just straight up offensive. It's almost like every other word out of Negan's mouth is some kind of fuck this or fuck that. I mean, you talk about that joke from the Boondock Saints about certainly illustrates the diversity of the word. It's very vulgar, it's grotesque, it's fucking...
So Negan's from Texas, I get it.
But they also do kind of a role reversal with it, because like as disgusting and vulgar as Negan can be, he's also kind of got like that twisted sense of morals. Like Negan might be like this total asshole character, but he's become so popular because he's just so funny in the way he's just so over the top in the way he talks.
Pretty cool. I mean, like, yeah, this is a pretty decent spiking. I mean, like I said, it's quite good and quite different than The Walking Dead I remember, so I'm almost happy I read this.
And that's why I recommend it, because this has easily been the best issue of The Walking Dead in a long time. And that wraps up the Spike the Punch segment. Johnny, what else do we have to finish the episode off with?
I pity the fool.
I pity the fool!
I Pity the Fool this week is sponsored by comicbooked.com.
Man, this is Kevin Smith, and you've been comic booked.
Johnny, who do you fucking pity?
I pity Puck, the poor little bald Canadian who's hard up, and of course, yeah, Boom Boom's cute, she's a character, but he falls for her ploy. He completely thinks that she's gonna make a bet with him and play by the rules, and like, yeah, he ends up being her little slave boy painting nails and plucking eyebrows. I pity that fool.
I pity the fool who's a Wolverine fan right now. I even started this episode by saying, there was a time, like, when I was a young, dumb kid where I always wanted to change my name to Logan just because I was so obsessed with Wolverine. Wolverine is without a doubt my favorite character in all of the X-Men, and probably in all of comics, and dating back for as long as I can fucking remember. But quite frankly, there's not a lot of really good Wolverine tales or Wolverine comic books out there. There's just so little for us to enjoy.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm not even a fan, and I'm sitting there reading this going like, man, this has got to be hard for Squirt, man. And then, like, I got to hear you before the show. I mean, like, we kind of church it up a bit, but, yeah, before and after the show, we discussed things like Cornell's run and this origin, and, I mean, like, it's got to suck, you know what I mean? It's got to be, like, the worst I had is when Bendis ran on Daredevil, and he kind of just regurgitated Born Again over, like, 60 issues. And, like, I mean, like, I'm looking at that, and that's awesome. That was an awesome run compared to what these assholes are doing to Wolverine and to your character, you know what I mean? I gotta quit crying about that, now. So I haven't had to deal with any of that yet. Feel bad for you, bro.
Thanks, man. But do we have another segment?
Yeah, we got Sexiest Moment.
Oh my.
Johnny Alpha, what did you think was the sexiest moment in comic books this week?
I am going to have to go with somebody I never thought I would, but I'm going to go with Jean Grey. Her little catty tissy at Cyclops, I don't know, it just was so very adorable and sadly sexy in a weird way, you know what I mean? I don't know, I found her very attractive in that scene.
My sexiest moment of the week comes from X-Men number 9, when M flies into the Enchantress. In that scene, you get a slim and slender, yet curvy woman in an epic action shot. God damn it, did she look good in that panel.
Yeah, man, I've always liked the way that she's been drawn. Like, she's definitely a bombshell, and, like, that's a hell of a sexy moment there, bro.
Now, if you've made it this far, you definitely enjoy listening to podcasts, but I'd very much appreciate if you stopped by youtube.com/user/allaboutxmencomics to watch the full-color interactive video version of our podcast. It's a great way to follow along as we talk about all these books. And quite frankly, it's probably the coolest incarnation of our podcast available. No matter where you listen to the All About X-Men Comics podcast, we both thank you for listening and look forward to seeing you again.